Welcome to the Science Shop, where only I step. Step. Yeah. When I'm pushing in that foreign, I'm the foreigner. I feel foreign, I'm in foreign, more to lie. I got more to lie, there's way more to see. So bit more to all this earth than the dirt to me. Dirty motherfucker, are you with me? Same white tee from the last time I hit it. Yeah. By natural design, I'm in Miami. I went London mopping with the hand-me-down fabric. Back in the zone, my time zone. Need some time. Where's my phone? Let me call these London bridges. Ayy, locking the door. We taking the plane. This your captain, ayy. This your captain, ayy. How this your Cujo rudder boy? I don't even text back. Ask me on some other shit. Things I'm not the best at. I'm just a 20-some, thinking about my early years. Thinking how 2 years ago I couldn't buy a 20 sag. Hey, niggas in Paris, prophecy fulfillment say I don't be moving around. I only need one in the ocean to flex on my weight converted to pounds. Get international, pissed off with my big nigga rocker ass. Got my light-skinned constituents in the hotel with their glasses on like what? Hey, SOS, I'm faded. SOS, I'm faded. Hey, SLS high, been skating. What the fuck can they say? Feel like they ain't got no shit to say. What? Hey, pushing in that foreign, I'm the foreigner. I feel foreign, I'm in foreign, more to lie. I got more to lie. There's way more to see. It's a bit more to all this earth than the dirt to me. Hey, dirty motherfucker, are you with me? Same white tee from the last time I hit it. By natural design, I'm in Miami. Out in London, mopping with the hand-me-down fabric. Ain't nothing glow like a light skin in love. Yeah, it's cool tape. Out of the zone, out of control, ain't no time. Fuck it though, that's the nature of the business. Yo, at the table, we got to talking. What you got to say? Talking about some melee, talking about some other shit. If we make it, I'ma push it to the flow. I'ma make it say, Wait though, where you finna go, Mr. Youngin? It's straight though, just try to make it go where you want it. As you wait for the train to take you home, for the flight you take that metaphor to mean that you ain't never over life. Cause the homies that don't smoke to this, hey, and I really pop bottles, yeah. But while I'm out here, I'm with it, goddamn, I'm in it, out here, I'm wildin', yeah. Hey, SOS, I'm faded. SOS, I'm faded, yeah. Hey, SLS, high been skating, what the fuck can they say? Feel like they ain't got no shit to say. What? When I'm pushing in that foreign, I'm the foreigner. I feel foreign, I'm in foreign, more to lie. I got more to lie. There's way more to see. It's a bit more to all this earth than the dirt to me. Hey, dirty motherfucker, are you with me? In the same white tee from the last time I by natural design, I'm in my I went London mopping with the hand-me-down fabric, but it feels like we lost, and it come from my restless heart. Hey, feels like another world, feels like things are moving up, feels like we walked the world. It's a call from my restless heart. Feels like another world. Hey, feels like the time to spark one. Cause I'm pushing in that foreign, I'm the foreigner. Hey, I feel foreign, I'm in foreign, more to lie. I got more to lie. There's way more to see. It's a bit more to all this earth than the dirt to me. Hey, dirty motherfucker, are you with me? Same white tee from the last time I hit it. By natural design, I'm in Miami. I went London mopping with the hand-me-down fabric.
What's up, everyone? We're here with Chris Watkins of Audiotree's Business Affairs Department. And I'm Blake, as usual, here from Audiotree as well. Hey, Chris, just for people who might not know you, would you just introduce yourself and kind of what your role is at Audiotree?
Man, I'm the janitor, the fireman. No, I mean, I've been at Audiotree almost since the inception.
Yeah.
And my position of digital media and business affairs is a little bit of a hybrid position. On the digital media side, I'm working with bands, labels, their attorneys, when it comes to the contractual aspect of doing a session with Audiotree or whatever other content that we may be producing.
Yeah.
On the business affairs side, there's a lot of reading of contracts, a lot of paperwork, a lot of negotiation, a lot of forecasting, as well as playing, as I say, chess, not checkers, in this business of music.
Yeah, and that's kind of how our roles started coming together as I was booking. Then we started working together a lot more to like handle contracts. And you had a lot of information and experience in kind of just talking to those people, not to mention legal language and all that kind of stuff. I'm curious how you started, like just the quick version of how you got connected to Audiotree in the first place. Because, like you said, you've basically been around since the beginning 10 years ago or whatever it was now to 9 years ago.
Yeah, so short story, short form, I was managing artists. I was working with a marketing company where I was a VP of that company. And I ran into one of the founders of Audiotree, Michael, and we had crossed paths in studios and never thought that we were going to be working together. But he had a couple questions, and then we later on linked a year or two later on. They said, "Hey, we're working on this project. We want to be a band friendly company, and could you come in for a day or two, a week, and just kind of help us with our navigation of these murky waters?" And the thing about the music business, people can go to college for it, but a lot of the information isn't shared. The
Yeah.
real nitty gritty information. I mean, there's books like Don Passman's written a great book, and there's a few other books out there, but a lot of the practicality of the business isn't often shared. So if you're not working along somebody that's trustworthy, often people are like, "Well, I need you to pay me to give you this information."
Sure.
And we hit it off early on, and then before you know it, now I'm in as a full-time person as opposed to just kind of helping out as a consultant.
Yeah, and like a lot of people at Audiotree, you started then sort of like grabbing other or absorbing, let's say, other roles as well as new things were developed or things started getting thrown your way, just like, hey, can you handle this? Especially because you were one of, or maybe the person who had to start doing proper contracts with bands. So that was one of the origins there as well. Cool. Well, I have a bunch of questions about that stuff and then some other stuff later. But just to start off, we're just going to do these 10 sort of lightning round questions to get you warmed up and me warmed up and all of that. Okay, so are you ready? The first one is your parent or guardian, whoever you grew up with, like favorite music.
Soul. I'd have to say
Specific
two.
artists?
I have to say two. My dad was a huge like Isaac Hayes, Earth, Wind, and Fire guy, and my mother loved gospel music. And it was an opera singer, actually.
Whoa, cool. Very cool. Your worst injury to date?
Worst injury?
Yeah, like if you've had a broken arm or leg or I don't know, scraped real bad?
Never broken a bone, but I was in a car accident where my back got tight, and so I had to loosen everything up. I was actually sitting on the expressway. A semi truck hit a car behind me, and they both hit me.
Whoa.
And I was sitting still. So, I mean, basically a little physical therapy, about 10, 12 sessions, and I was good to go.
Dang, wow. Your best birthday celebration or gift and the year, if you can remember. Whether it was your little kid or I don't know, when you turned 30, you threw a big party or any sort of thing like that.
Best gift that I received, got a lot of them over the years, but golf clubs.
Yes.
Got golf clubs one year, and that changed my life.
Yes. Because you've been golfing for how long now?
Been golfing for about 7 years now. 7 years. So.
And the reigning champ at Audiotree, as they say. I've never golfed with you. I suck, so I wouldn't be any competition. But the other dudes say that you're the king.
Thank you for that. But it's a work in progress. It's a game you never master.
Yeah, right.
That's why I like to play it, because you play Monopoly or Uno or whatever you like, you're going to beat that person eventually. You don't beat golf.
Yeah.
You end up losing balls. You buy new equipment.
Right.
It's on and on. It's a constant growth. And that's what
Yeah,
I like.
probably new strategies and that kind of thing too. You were the first person who told me that the best way to keep energy is to like snacks the whole time, because people like to do that thing where they eat like a big meal before they go out, but then golf could take 3 hours or whatever, and then you've like lost all of your energy by the time you're at hole 10.
Uh, Good. That's probably the best advice I gave you. That's correct.
Yeah, that's like
I try to live by that advice because when you get out there, you're excited, you're pumped up.
yeah,
You get to about the third or fourth hole, and then the energy. You hit a couple bad shots, and then after about 9 holes and 2 hours later, if you're pumping beers or whatever you're doing or a hot dog, that goes away. But if you look at the pros, they have a protein bar, some almonds or whatever. They kind of eat every couple of holes, so they kind of
constantly.
maintain
Yeah,
that level. And also hydration, you got to drink
sure.
water constantly.
Yeah, especially if you're drinking beer, then you need to be drinking even more water.
I don't mind if my opponent drinks plenty of beer. Continue.
Oh yeah,
You
exactly.
know what I'm saying? Because then if we have a little wager, it's probably going to be beneficial to me.
Oh yeah, dude. I'm so with that. Whenever I play lawn games, that's what I always try and do, get the other person wasted. But then there are those certain people who like hit the zone when they get right drunk. Like not like sloppy, but I mean a couple of beers and then they're like zoned in, especially for skill games.
Well, look at performers. I mean, I'm not going to put air out performers' dirty laundry, but
No,
some artists need a shot or a beer or whatever enhancer they like, what I'm saying, to kind of relax before they go out and perform in front of other people. And that can be dangerous too. But the thing is that there's other ways through meditation, through yoga, stretching, also chewing gum.
sure.
That's another way to kind of relax,
Yeah,
especially when you got to do something important.
cool. A passion you had in high school besides music?
Passion in high school besides music. Well, I mean, DJing was a big thing.
Cool.
Making music was a big thing. But I say, playing sports. I was really good at baseball. I was probably the sport I could have excelled at if I decided to stay with it.
Hmm. What position did you play?
Played third base and catcher.
Nice. Do you have bad knees because of that, or did it
No.
not do it long enough? Okay, yeah.
No, I stopped. When I got to high school, music started taking over, and then that's when I made music, made house music early on, a lot of tracks.
Nice.
DJ'd a lot, so that kind of became the new passion.
Cool. Do you still write it all?
Do I write any music?
Yeah.
No, not as much. Back then I used to collaborate
Sure.
with other producers, other writers, and it was more of like, we had the jam session. So I had my drum machine out, I had a keyboard, we had a sampler, and we just started making music. And then before you know it, we had a track. We might have made 10 tracks, only one of them was good at the end of it.
Sure. Yeah, way different than like holed up in your room trying to do it by yourself or whatever, for
Yeah,
sure.
a little bit different.
Your most impactful teacher or a mentor, like whether that's in school or I don't know, like someone at your church or someone at, any person in your life.
Yeah, in college, there was a professor that I had, and I don't want to mess up his name, but we didn't use a textbook. We used the Wall Street Journal. So he said, you need to read this before you come to class. And then at any moment, we'll go through, whatever the topics are in the financial world and the business world. And what that kind of led me to understand was it was great reading the textbook and understanding the philosophy.
Yeah.
But as far as applying business acumen day to day and analyzing it, I think a lot of times where we've missed the mark in traditional teaching is that we're teaching concepts and philosophies versus on the job, like actual skill sets and understanding of concepts.
Right. And that makes sense for your comment earlier about like how you can go to school for the music industry, but really like having someone take you under their wing and teach you these things, share that information. That's where you're really going to learn. That makes a lot of sense that would linger through or like follow through to you as an adult, Cool. If you could eat one meal for the rest of your life, what would it be? And it's like magic. You're not going to get fat if it's like candy or whatever. You know what I mean? Like it'll sustain you.
It'll sustain me.
Yeah.
Ooh, hard thing. One thing. I like a lot of different food. I'd probably say seafood. If I had like salmon, some kind of seafood, I got to have seafood, then I'll be fine.
Cool. Your best animal friend, either a pet of yours or someone you grew up with?
It's tough. I had 2 parrots when I was little. and
Oh,
left the door open. And they flew out into the winter. We
no.
couldn't find them. And then all of a sudden we saw some colored leaves, which we thought were leaves, but they were the birds. They got stuck in the snow and they died in the snow. But yeah,
Oh my
Jerry and Cherry were the names. They were ferrets. They were huge birds.
That's
Yep.
so tragic.
It's tragic, but it's also funny because the
Yeah.
naivete of thinking you can leave the door open in the cage,
Of course.
you leave the patio door open or whatever, and then they fly out, and it's like, oh, they'll come back. And it's like,
Right. The earliest memory you can recall.
The earliest memory I can recall, my grandfather taking me down to a pool hall on his shoulders, sitting me at the bar, and the bartender gave me an orange juice, and she was very pretty.
Yes. Where was that?
I was on the south side of Chicago on 87th Street.
Cool.
So yeah.
Is that place still there? Like,
No.
have you been back? Okay, no.
I've driven by it. My grandma used to live there. I drove by that place. I remember the physical location, but it's gone.
Yeah. The most comfortable location in your hometown, like whether that's somewhere in your house or some restaurant, maybe it's the golf course, like someplace that you feel very like settled and calm.
Museum campus on Lake Michigan. That actual point out by Adler Planetarium where you can look back and see the entire city. And Lake Michigan looks like an ocean at that point. That's probably I've walked out there, jogged out there last 15 years of my life. And I sit there and we got a big decision. If you're trying to do strategy, if I just need to exhale from quarantine, that's the place to go.
Yeah, hell yeah. Love it.
So Lori Lightfoot, no disrespect. She shut down the lakefront, so we had to respect it.
No, yeah. You gotta, but yeah. Last one is your favorite item of clothing or accessory. Something you can't do without, like that you wear.
Jordan 1s.
Yes. Do you have them with you?
Well, I have a collection. People that know me know about my old collection, but Jordan 1s, that's my favorite shoe.
Why those? Like, why that version?
Because you can wear them with anything. You can dress them up, dress them down. If you want to wear shorts and have them on, that's great. If you want to put on a suit, you can put them on and no one's going to look at you crazy. Go out to dinner, go to a business meeting. Classic shoe. It's the best.
Do you classify yourself as a sneakerhead or like as a sneaker collector? Like, is that part of your person?
Past tense.
Okay.
That was a habit that I gave up.
Okay, yes, because it's expensive or?
It's expensive, but also too, you get to a point where, and I think that quarantine had a lot to do with it. Just the recent times, you realize the things that you covered so much really don't mean much.
Yeah, sure.
In a time where jobs are important, food's important, family's important, health and well-being is important. When you have 7,500, 200 pairs of gym shoes, and you really to care less. You can only wear one pair, but you need to find out, do you need to get in line to get food for the day?
Sure.
How important are those gym shoes at that point? When you're moving around, you're kind of like out and about in the Instagram, social media,
sure,
that setting, then I want to wear this with this outfit. But I mean, now it's like you wear 4 or 5 t-shirts, a pair of jogging pants, and the same shoe every day. You're just trying to live.
For real. Yeah, that's a good, that's honestly a really great transition into what we're going to talk about next. What has your experience been with quarantine? Like, how do you think about it? And especially with work, we've both been still working for Audiotree with your family. You have a son and you're married. Just maybe a general feeling, and then we can do some specifics.
It's been the hardest thing, I think, in my life to experience. And I don't say that casually.
Yeah.
There is no handbook. History in the past, you saw like breakouts, the Great Depression. There's times in our lives where you can say, okay, maybe I can call my grandma, maybe I can call my aunt, uncle, mother. Sure. How did you deal with this? What can we do differently? There is no experience for our generation of experiencing what we're going through now.
No.
And on top of it, school. My son is in school and then having to do homeschool. The work that we do and having the lack of the ability to interact with others. and having to do it different ways. I mean, Zoom, we're always on a conference call, always on a video chat. And that's great because we're maintaining interaction, but we're built as people to do two things. And that's one, to move. You know, if we're sedentary, you start feeling different.
Oh yeah.
And then the lack of interaction with other individuals, I think from a mental standpoint, one thing that people aren't talking about, we don't know what it's going to be like in a year, 2 years. We look back to people who've had serious mental issues because they've been isolated by themselves or the inability to interact with one another. So, I mean, that's been the hardest thing, I think, of all this. So I try to go out every day. I try to stay active. I mean, golf courses are back open now. So, of course, you know, I'm taking advantage of that. But
yeah,
it's different. It's different, man.
For sure. With your son, yeah, I'd be curious because, you know, I have kids as well, younger than yours, but have you seen changes in him? Because I feel like I've seen a little bit in Oakley, and not so much Remy because he's like a baby, but with Oakley, like just really craving people in a bodily way. You know what I mean? Like he just itches so hard to hug somebody or say hi to someone. You know, any of that kind of stuff. Have you seen that with your son as well?
Yeah, I've noticed it. You know, iPad time has went up dramatically.
Oh God, yes.
And that's because school's on the iPad.
Yeah.
So
oh, right.
you have to do so many hours, and normally, you know, Luke was a person that would only get a couple hours on the weekend. Now it's like hours every day.
Sure.
And then on top of that, his social interaction with his friends a lot of times is through the iPad. And then when we go to the park or we see other kid that he wants to play with, you know, he's like, well, you can't do this, you can't do this. There's no hugging, there's no wrestling, tackling, there's no tackle football, whatever, no soccer, because you got to keep that space and you also got to keep the mask on.
Sure.
And so, you know, it's tough. But you know what, the one thing about it is kids are very resilient.
Yeah.
And they actually don't have the memory that adults have, because us being older, we have 20, 30, 40 years worth of information of how we used to do things.
Sure.
In this case, he only has a year or two.
Yeah.
You know, they don't really remember to a big degree of, you know, all those years of summer camp, all those years of Little League, all those years of basketball camp. So it's a little easier in some regards, but it's still hard because he wants to do things naturally.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so we can move to the section that I was going to begin with. I would like to know, just again, kind of a quick story of how you got involved with the music industry in general before Audiotree, kind of what you were doing.
Well, before Audiotree, my first biggest aspect of the music business was working with street teams, national marketing campaigns for artists like Jay-Z, Diddy. You know, I could name all the who's who on the rap side, you know, from Biggie to NWA on down. And then even working in the R&B world, working with like Mariah Carey, Janet Jackson, Whitney Houston. And our job was, when an album came out, to let everybody know in a particular city via urban radio, via clubs, via retail establishments. We were actually like publicists in some degrees, or what we called market Bibles. We knew where all the hot spots were in the city. And our job was to get that information out there that a new album was coming out and to give away some of the music, get people excited. And when the artists came to town, we were the tour guide.
Cool.
So they're like, well, hey, where do we go to eat? Where do we shop? Where are people going to see us? And that's what I would do. We would take them out to those places. And that's how I got my start. And then I started realizing doing the legwork like that in my 20s was cool, but I was out in a city like Chicago. I was out 6 days of the week.
Yeah.
Because everybody was coming to Chicago. You know, like if you lived in no disrespect to other cities, but like Milwaukee or, you know, St. Louis or Kansas City or something like that, they come in for a day. Yeah, in Cleveland, they come in for a day. In Chicago, they wanted to hang out for 2 or 3 days.
Sure.
So then I started getting older, and I was like, you know what? This isn't what I want to do for the rest of my life. It's lucrative, whatever, but there's got to be something else. And so I started working with advertising agencies and with the artists. When the artists would come in town, I'd say, hey, I'm going to have this artist in town. We'd like to do a listening party for this artist. What brands are you working with that we can partner with? And then that turned into other business opportunities. And then I also was managing some artists as well. And then
Sure.
at that point, I was moving between Chicago and New York a lot, Chicago and Philadelphia, and as well as Chicago and LA.
Hmm.
And LA was like a second home for a long time.
Yeah, that's what I've heard you reference that before, that you had spent a bunch of time in LA. Did you ever, I mean, you probably have good friends out there and such too, but do you have family out there or anything like that?
Not a lot of family, a lot of friends, people I've known over the ages, over the years. Um, the funny thing about LA though, and the music business is one thing, entertainment in LA is one thing.
Yeah.
So when you're hot, you're on top of the world as an artist, everybody loves you. But
Yeah.
then you kind of like fall back and, you're in between cycles. LA becomes more of a working atmosphere.
Sure.
And so,
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
you see the people kind of come down off the pedestal a little bit.
Sure.
So that's the only reason why I really never loved LA as much as I love Chicago or New York
Mm.
for that sake. Because, you still got to keep yourself grounded to some degree.
Yeah.
In Chicago, because people in Chicago will tell you straight up, like, hey, man, just because you moved, you're still from here. Don't forget where you came
Yeah.
from.
There is that Chicago has a very serious, like, once you belong, you're from there kind of thing,
Oh, yeah, we'll ride you. We ride you hard here in Chicago, especially with our sports teams. We
Oh,
love
yeah.
you or hate you. But, we'll always show you love in the street, but we're gonna talk about you if you're not doing well. That's for
Oh,
sure.
for sure. My dad grew up outside of Chicago, and like his dad, so my grandpa was like Cubs fan all growing up. And then they moved to Atlanta, and then he turned to a Braves fan. And apparently, like everyone just gives him so much shit for that. Like you can't just bail. Like sorry. Like you have to be a Cubs fan. You don't get a choice. Like
Well, I'm a Sox fan first. Let me just say that.
sure.
But I'm a Southsider. But I do appreciate all Chicago sports. And when the Cubs did win, finally won,
Yes.
I was happy for a lot of my diehard fans. I used to joke. I said, "You're gonna die before you see them win a World Series."
Oh, dude, right? That felt just like true. I mean, that's not even a joke. Like they were so bad for so long.
It was.
But then they did the whole farm team thing, and that's crazy. Well, yeah. I mean, we can talk about that for a while, but let's move on. We'll move on. So we've been having a bunch of conversations about what's going on in the political landscape right now, and I would just like to gain some insight from you. Were you born in Chicago?
Yeah, I was born in Chicago. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So born and raised in Chicago. What are your thoughts about just in general what's happening in the world right now and in the city of Chicago specifically after George Floyd?
Yeah, it's definitely one for the history books. I think that this is a moment that my son will look at 30, 40 years from now and say, hey, I remember that point in time. The thing that's unique about all this, and we kind of talked about quarantine earlier, but this was like the perfect storm. Being that I think a lot of the younger kids, let's say the teens and the 20s, they get a lot of their news through social media. Whereas, myself being in the 40s, I'm going to turn on the news and watch the news. And kids were at home, young adults were at home. I think everybody's kind of tired of watching Netflix. Everybody's tired of watching, whatever they're doing. And they see something happen on social media. And they see that this individual was basically choked out. And not just 30-second, 1 minute. This was an 8 minute and 45, whatever the exact amount of time, just under 9 minutes.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I watched it, I didn't believe it. I sat there, I said, wait a minute, this has got to be, is this really happening? And then I watched it again and then watched his lifeless body.
Mm.
And at that point, I kind of like just had that pause. Like, man, this is something different. And this is a problem. This isn't right. And before this, there was also the Ahmaud Arbery situation in Georgia.
Yeah.
There was the Amy Cooper situation in Central Park. There's the Breonna Taylor thing that's still going on in Kentucky, in Louisville. And so this was kind of like the perfect storm. If this was a regular summer day, People would be out and about, vacation, schools, work, whatever. But everybody is a captive audience. Everybody's at home, and it's hitting everyone at once.
Yeah.
And on top of that, everybody's communicating across the country at the same time.
Yes. Yes.
And the outrage kicked in. And not just outrage of Black people. I mean, because I'm naturally, being a Black man, I'm naturally going to be upset.
Sure.
I've had my instances dealing with police officers and law enforcement. And not that I have a criminal background or anything, but I've just, it's just what life is in America. I mean, we're going to have a real conversation. Let's just talk about it real.
Yeah, absolutely.
Real way. And so when that happened, I feel like everybody at that point hit a fever pitch. And that's when we started seeing the protests and saying, hey, people saying, hey, enough's enough. I don't care if you're white, Black, Latino, Asian, whatever, enough's enough. And something has to change. And so seeing that, I've had all kind of different mixed emotions. I mean, some days I was upset, some days I was sad, some days I've been more hopeful.
Yeah.
That maybe change will finally come.
Yeah.
But whatever it is, I just know for myself, I've had to make peace with myself in the situation. And when I say peace with myself is that I'm going to do what I can to make a difference. I'm going to do individually what I can to change my world around me. I can't change everybody. Getting on a bullhorn, maybe not everyone's going to listen to me, but all the people that I know, I want to at least share my experience and also let them know that, hey, it's okay to get involved.
Yeah. Yeah. What would you say? I don't know if tips isn't necessarily the right word, but like, what's maybe some advice you would have for people that are trying to affect just the community around them? Because I think that's great advice. Like, I think we're trapped in this position where a lot of people want to take to social media, not that it's a waste of time or anything necessarily, but take to social media to make some big claim or to say who you are or to support some cause or something, all of which could be really positive. But I think there's something that's missing that's pragmatic about some of that. So I'm just curious maybe just some thoughts on what you think people could do or what you're doing in your own life. Obviously sharing your story, doing this now, is one thing, but
it's hard. I don't think that there's a one size fit all solution.
Sure.
When you watch the news or look at social media, I see some people saying, oh, you got to say this, or you have to say it this way. You can only participate in this way.
Yeah.
And I don't agree with that. I think that we're all in different situations. We all have different resources. We all have different connections and different experiences. And so I would just say that, for one, if you don't know what to do, look and research. There are literally hundreds of charities. There are hundreds of initiatives. There's athletes getting involved now. There's, everybody knows about Black Lives Matter, the organization, not just the phrase, because I think sometimes people don't understand there's two different things.
Yeah.
Hashtag Black Lives Matter is more like a cultural statement,
movement.
Right?
Yeah,
it's a movement.
Yeah.
But there's the Black Lives Matter organization, which they have their own principles and things that they stand up for.
Sure.
And then I think that you need, once you find what works for you, get involved. I always say there's the 3 T's. Me being a church person, there's the testimony, there's your time, and your talent. And so if you don't have money, which is the actual money aspect of it, what we call the tithe part of it, the talent and the testimony, you have talent. If you're a graphic designer, you can make flyers. You can assist with an organization in helping them do their branding. If there's a testimony, maybe, you've been in certain situations that you can speak up and kind of let people know your story.
Yeah.
And then there's also your time. You can give your time where you can volunteer. And I think those things, and outside, there's the money, we call the tithe aspect of it, but the money where you can contribute. But you just have to do the homework and find what fits your messaging and fits you and your belief system.
Yeah, I like that. Especially like there is so much out there, like just doing the work. is important, I think, for sure.
You know, the other thing that I don't want to get lost in all this too is there are a lot of brands that are saying, "Hey, we're doing this, we're
Yeah,
contributing this,"
right.
but I would also challenge those brands um, to also look inside your organization.
Yeah,
What are you doing to promote um, that same cause you're giving financially to within your organization? You know, are you also treating everyone in your organization with diversity and inclusivity? You know,
mhm,
are you excluding people that you shouldn't be doing? Now, one thing about Audiotree, I'll say that is that we have people from all walks of life at Audiotree, and we don't have the big offices, the corner offices. You know how it is. Everybody works in a
right next
circular
to each other.
environment. Yeah, we work in teams, and that's the
Yep,
one thing that's always been great. I think about our organization. You know,
for sure,
music itself, um, you know, is a healing. It's a healing balm, as I call it. You know,
for sure.
you don't know where I'm from when I sing. You don't know what I've been through when I sing. But when I sing to you and you're the person receiving the music, if it moves you, it moves you.
Yeah,
You know, you don't go into a preconceived notion like, well, oh, this is you know, you can't be a black country music person, or you can't be, you know, a black blues player. Well, these people played these types of music early on. It's just that now, you know, people don't really think of it like that. They just listen to the music. They don't think
yeah,
about where you came from when you made music. Oh, you're from Nashville? Well, I'm not listening to that. You know,
yeah, right,
that's not what happens.
right. Yeah, there's a popularization of like what certain peoples can do in music, or like what they're sort of allowed to do in music. That's
Mhm.
really interesting, because when you look at the history of it, yeah, I mean, absolutely, like all music comes from black people. So they can say whatever they can
Yeah, I mean,
play whatever the fuck they want.
but you know, the thing is too is that when you think about music too, you know, it's funny. I remember going into Buddy Guy Legends downtown Chicago,
Cool,
and
yeah,
you go into the blues bar, but then you see, you know, there might be a black artist performing, but the crowd's all white,
sure,
and I'm sitting here like, what's going on? And then I even had to say to myself, it's like, well, when's the last time you bought a blues record, Chris?
yeah, sure,
You know, and I think that sometimes we lose we lose track of, and we don't really think about it. We just like what we like,
yeah, right,
right? But then culturally, the music tends to create its own following, it creates its own marketing, it creates
right,
its own strategy. And labels also do a part of that too, right? Like
yeah,
labels also want to perpetuate whatever they want to put out. But as consumers, we're not thinking about that. We're just consuming. We're not looking
totally,
past the veil of what's the messaging of this music. And so I think that that's why I say you can be whoever you want and make good music. Good music always wins, or should win.
yeah, should win,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. That's an interesting, because you have a marketing background. What do you think the role of marketing is in like yeah, in things like that? Do you think that there's a lot of power from marketing to push whatever it is, I don't know, specific brands or specific types of music as made by these specific people? I'm just trying to think of like how like Lil Yachty advertises Sprite, right? And LeBron James advertises Sprite. And yeah, I don't
I,
know where
think,
I was going with that,
I know
but
where you're going. I know where you're going with it. I mean,
yeah,
so I think let me just kind of say this. Before, in the past, labels had a lot more leverage
sure,
because artists couldn't go directly to consumers.
sure,
So by having Apple Music and Spotify and all these other companies where you can put your music out and reach a consumer, once you get to a certain level, you don't necessarily need the record label.
yeah,
You just
right,
don't have the cash. But
right,
in the past, you know, there was always different departments. So urban music was known for black music,
yeah,
pop departments, and in the urban department, there was mostly African Americans working those radio stations. And in the
sure,
pop
sure,
departments, and those were crossover teams, which were primarily white, working just those stations. And I'll never forget, we had a Justin Timberlake record, Justified, the first album he put out. When you
yes,
listen to that album, you could hear Stevie Wonder influence. You could hear
yeah,
some Michael Jackson influence. You know, and Pharrell and Timberland, they made classics on this record. I remember taking the record to the urban radio station, and they were like, "We're not playing Justin Timberlake because he was a white artist trying to sound black."
Right.
Right? And so I said, "Wait a minute here. These records are big records, whether you like them or not."
Yeah.
And when the women start playing these records,
Yeah.
you're going to be forced to having to play these records.
Yes.
No, we're not playing that, man. This guy's trying to sound black. And I said, all right. And then literally 3-4 months later, Justified was all over.
Dude, huge. Yes.
So same thing, you can look at it the other way around. When Pharrell came up with NERD, which was basically a rock band.
Yeah.
And urban radio didn't want to play it. And certain stations were like, well, he's a rap producer.
Yeah.
But now you look at the history of NERD, and when you heard that song Lap Dance and the video came out, you saw kids at rock shows or at festivals hitting the mosh pit and all that, then you start realizing you can be a black rocker. But I say this all because the labels will try to put you in a box.
Yes.
You know, because they're like, hey, we're going to spend this amount of money strictly over here. We're not going over here, not until you can prove you can get here. And I think as we're into the, to 2020 and beyond, artists have their own control. They have a lot more control.
Yes.
And you can market on your own. You can, through ads and so forth and algorithms, you can pitch your music to the people that listen to similar artists like yours. And you're not so reliant upon the label. And two, if you've gone out and you got 2 million, 3 million streams and the labels are calling you, you say, listen, man, what are you going to do for me? Because I'm already making X amount of dollars.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's like the Chance the Rapper strategy, right? Like, just look at how popular I already am. To sign to somebody, it would have to be like the best deal only for me. Like, you're not going to be able to, your cut, whatever your cut would be very small in comparison to what I'm getting. Yeah, that's all so interesting. We had an artist on Audiotree a while back named Mobley. It's really cool. And I would say he makes like kind of electronic rock music. And he said that like people are always trying to categorize him as either R&B or soul because he's black, but his music is like not R&B or soul really at all. Like the only thing that would, anyway, just totally agree with you. And then what Tyler, the Creator, had that thing with like the Grammys, which obviously everyone knows the Grammys are more or less washed, but it's like that his album Igor won in the urban contemporary like category. And he was like, that's not what it is at all. It's like pop music with rock undertones. So yeah.
Well, often the people that are in charge of marketing, and I don't want to say all the time, but a lot of times are out of touch.
Yeah.
What the kids want to listen to.
Yeah.
Now the reason there's no secret for myself why I decided to get more involved in the business side versus the artist side.
Sure.
That's because artists come and go.
Yeah.
But the people at the companies have been around for generations, right? And so my passion was heavier for the business part of music. And also too, I got tired of seeing people get screwed over.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I bet.
So that's why, I went in that direction. And it's worked out. I've been blessed.
Yeah. And you worked for there was a little bit of time, speaking of sort of like different types of music. You worked for what's that rock label? Vagrant? You worked for Vagrant for a little bit, right?
I worked with Vagrant for a while. Yeah, I worked with Vagrant for a while. We were helping putting together the street teams. I had some friends over there. I don't know if everybody is still there. I know last my buddy Dan was still there during the restructure, as they've all now are part. I think, believe me, I believe they're with BMG. Don't hold me to that. Yeah. But yeah, I worked like Alkaline Trio and a bunch of other records. Vagrant was a classic rock label.
Yeah.
When I say classic, not classic rock genre.
Yeah, but classic.
They had some classic records that came through there. During that era in the emo world. So, and I remember going to the Riv at Alkaline Trio show and seeing kids from the suburbs come down with DMX t-shirts on and the Rough Riders logo chains. And I'm sitting here like, wait a minute, what's going on? I'm like, but see, and that goes back to music not having any color.
No.
When I would talk to these kids, I'm like, hey, coming to the show, and like, yeah, and they had Alkaline Trio tattoos on. They were like, man, I love X. And I always used to say to myself, why wasn't DMX like that huge rock artist? I mean, he had other things that detoured him, but
Sure.
he would have had an opportunity like none other going that direction.
Yeah, it would be so interesting to like have challenged some, or allowed, I should say, allowed some of those artists who ended up doing whatever, specifically rap music, to do more rock music. I mean, one of the rappers that we both like, Denzel Curry, he's like definitely a punk at his core, you know? Like he makes rap music, but like it's punk music.
Oh, the delivery.
Oh, it's so, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, dude, he's all in your face. Yeah.
Yeah, when he hits that, I am the one that, you know, it's like I'm sitting here like, wait, that ain't a regular rap delivery.
No.
You see him at a show when that record drops, it's a wrap. Like,
Dude,
kids are just up in there jumping up and down. It's over. You know?
I saw him at Riot Fest, and it was like one of the more intense. Like a lot of people weren't watching at the very beginning, you know, like especially at a festival, people are sort of shifting around as one artist is starting over away from one that just ended. And I don't remember what song he played, but yeah, one of the more intense ones, which is most of his discography. It just flooded, people flooded to that stage and started moshing and stuff. Like he's amazing. Okay, so it's 4:45. We should wrap-ish. This has been amazing. Thank you so much for chatting with me. I just have a few more questions to close it all out. What's advice for new people who are looking to start a career in something adjacent to music? It doesn't have to be exactly what we're doing now, but what would your advice be for people that are seeking to get involved in the music industry?
Well, if you're looking to get involved with the business side, I would tell you it's great to go to school for, music business, or there might be programs out there for that. But I would also tell you to go to school for accounting, finance, law, contract law, because the things that I do, the things that other people do in our office, outside of Blake and Jess and a few other folks that are out there that are like, dealing with bands day to day. These are real business functions. Mm-hmm. It just so happens that we're a music company on top of the contracts that I'm looking at, on top of the copyright information that I'm looking at, on top of royalty accounting, on top of negotiating deals with other companies. So, real business acumen never is going to go away. And I would tell people that want to get into business, I would start there and then find an internship opportunity. There may be opportunities in television, in movie studios, and right now, of course, everything's a little bit slow motion, but once we come out of this, look at what's happening in the tech side of our business. There's so much more going on, live streaming and production. So if you understand that aspect of the business, there's always going to be an opportunity for photographers, camera people, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say learn a real trade as opposed to a specialized trade, because you'd be surprised, where it will take you.
No, man, that's such good advice. My sort of adjacently, but my best friend Ed works in nonprofits, and he says that nonprofits' biggest problem is that they have so many people with the heart and the passion and nobody that knows how to do anything. So like so much of why nonprofits fail is because they don't have people who like have actual finance background running their financial departments. They just have people who care about the cause, which is amazing, but cannot be the only thing. And that makes perfect sense and relates a lot in my mind to music, where so many people have the passion and you want to do, stuff in the music industry. But if you don't have any real skills, it's you're not going to be as valuable.
Being an influencer doesn't really take it that far.
Yeah, exactly.
in our business, so you got to be able, when we're doing royalty and accounting and we're dealing with technological stuff, project management, a lot of it's project management.
Yeah,
you have to understand that aspect of the business.
Totally. And then just my last one is anything you would like to say to the audience, and then we'll close out about yourself or about life.
Yeah, I would just say that during this moment that we're in, digest it. And I think it's easy to get sidetracked and to say, you know what, I'm not going to deal with it. I'm going to immerse myself in my other things, whether it be, you know, going down the YouTube wormhole,
Yeah.
binge watching Netflix,
Escaping.
yeah, escaping from wherever else that you in any way you can. But what I would say is it's not going to go away.
Yeah.
And I think that these hard conversations we're going to have over the next few months are going to be with us to stay. But there's growth. And any growth that we have as individuals is a lot of times uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's easy to coast through life. A lot of times the people that coast, you don't look back and say, hey, I achieved this much. You know, it's kind of, I think the uncomfortable conversations, the uncomfortable situations will grow from and will become stronger because of it. And that's what I would say to everybody.
With a conversation that one is having, especially about Black Lives Matter, George Floyd, that kind of thing, how do you advise that people approach that kind of stuff? Like, with patience, hopefully, with a little bit of, you know, trying to listen. Especially, I'm talking about your, you know, old white grandma kind of problem. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm going back to Iowa this weekend. I'm going to have to deal with some Iowans about this. So this is honestly straight advice from me. How do I talk to people about this stuff? Learning what I've learned from you and from other people in my lives.
You know, I can't tell you how it's like to speak to, you know, your grandma.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I'm sure she's a wonderful person to talk to. But I would tell you this, that this conversation is a lot like politics. You know, people have conversations in politics, and some are real nonchalant, and some people are ready to get into a fist fight, you know, after politics. And I would say that the thing that when that happens is we're not listening to one another, we're talking past each other. And so sometimes listening is harder. Well, I know for me it's harder because you got to let that person get out all that information, even if you believe that the information is wrong, and you try to find one kernel of common ground, if you can. And then also, too, there's empathy. You know, we don't listen with empathy. Am I putting myself in your shoes? Are you putting yourselves in my shoes? And, you know, I remember going to school in Nashville and having a new car and driving down a certain street in the middle of the night in West End by Vanderbilt University and getting pulled over by the cops. Not just one cop, but 5 squad cars. And I'm by myself. Does it take 5 squad cars to pull me over?
God.
You know, and then I get out and they're like, you know, and then all of a sudden, like, I'm uncomfortable. And I'm like, well, let me just deal with this. You know, and the conversation was, that's a nice car, boy. I said, boy, whoa. You know, and it took everything for me not to say, clap back, because I'm quick with it, but I was like, you know, is it worth it? And so when I've told that story to other people, like, oh, you know, that sounds like a movie. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't see it. But then when you see things on TV, and now we're seeing things on body cams, and now we're hearing other stories in other parts of the country, it's real. And so sometimes it's not very real when it's only one instance, right? But now because there's multiple instances, now it's becoming more real.
Yeah.
And so in these conversations, you're not going to be able to fight all the hate in one conversation. You can't fight all the years of programming. You can't fight all the years of anger, right? And stereotypes.
Yeah.
What you can do is you can say, starting from this point forward, right? If we have this mutual respect for one another and we're talking about it, I may not like what you have to say, you may not like what I have to say, but we can both agree nobody deserves to be George Floyd. Nobody deserves to have a knee on their neck for 9 minutes.
Yeah.
And if we can find that common ground, which a lot of people are, and I think that's why we're seeing, you know, I ain't gonna lie to you, man, I went out to a protest the other day and I'm seeing, you know, 85% white people in line. And the first thing, it kind of hit me. You know what I'm saying? Like, wait a minute. That's not me. I'm out here, but it's not just me out here.
Yeah.
And so I've been programmed because normally when there's a protest or a walk, it's just me and other people like me. Now,
Sure.
it's other people that don't look like me that are walking right next to me,
Yeah.
and seemingly understand exactly what I was feeling. So now I think we just got to find pieces, steps to build on. We got to find common ground, and foundations to build on, and that's all. And it's not going to be overnight.
Yeah.
But I've seen some pretty interesting acts of courage by young kids talking to their parents online. I've seen mothers and fathers, bringing their kids out to protest. I've seen, you know, generations of people starting to say, you know what, enough is enough. And what we can't move forward as a country. We really can't. And I say this, with all genuineness, it's going to be hard to move forward as a country if we can't get past this, because
Yeah.
we're just sweeping it under the rug. And if we continue to sweep it under the rug, this is going to get bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Oh man, I so agree. Thank you so much, Chris, for who you are and for sharing. Everyone, this has been a chat with Chris Watkins. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.